Jumping straight into the agenda, today we'll be talking about sharing. It's the new social features within SharePoint, which allows people to connect across the business, usually more laterally than actually going up directly through the hierarchy and only speaking with the people they know. SharePoint allows you to find people with skills and information provided by those users from across the business, regardless of the size of the organization. We'll be having a chat about the organizing of the SharePoint content, how it gets held in SharePoint. We'll be looking at discovering information and how SharePoint surfaces the information, makes it very easy to find answers and discover insights and connect with the people who are the experts within the business. We'll be taking also a dip into the design side of SharePoint and how people are able to buy apps or build apps and develop within SharePoint. Microsoft have made that a lot easier for ourselves now to work through with that. And lastly, we'll talk about how SharePoint provides us the controls to manage the cost and the risk of administrating SharePoint within a business. As Chris said, we will have a Q&A section at the end. But feel free to pop up any questions as we go through the presentation, and we'll pick them up as and when we can. But hopefully we'll answer everything you have for us at the end. All right, jumping into sharing. We're going to be talking about the social features that SharePoint have now brought in. Microsoft have given us a whole host of features aimed directly at the individual user. The first being OneDrive for Business. Now, OneDrive for Business, just to make a clarification, is separate from the OneDrive in the cloud that Microsoft offer out as cloud hosting space for individual people. OneDrive for Business is hosted on-premise when you have an on-prem installation, and with Office 365, it is hosted with the Office 365 accounts on their servers over there. So it is completely separate to the normal OneDrive that you might recognize. OneDrive for Business is generally within the company, and it allows users to store personal documents, sync these documents from their PC, from the cloud or the server to their PC or to their laptop, so you're always able to connect to your documentation and take it wherever you need to. Be able to share these documents with other users. There's a very quick and easy way of being able to control the permissions that govern your own personal documents within these sections. And what I'll do is I'll quickly take a quick look at my own personal OneDrive and give you guys a bit of a view. Let's have a quick look. On the screen, OneDrive will always be accessible from wherever you are within your SharePoint environment from the top bar over here. And as you can see, it just follows the normal structure of a document library with all your folders. You're able to quickly and easily create folders, folder structures, and new documents. We can also create specific templates that can go in here for anybody that needs them. The column sharing shows you exactly what is locked down as private and what is shared, and also tells you quickly who it is it's shared with. Out of the basically out of the box, everybody will get this one shared with everybody folder, and that folder will allow you to drop in any folders, and then you can give anybody a link to that folder quite quickly and easily, and they'll be able to access that documents, whilst any other documents or folders that you create will be locked down and kept personal to yourself. Jump back again. Sharing is fairly easy and quick. There's just a button now that they brought in where you can pop in any information, so you can say, well, I'd like to share this with someone within my building, and I can tell them exactly if they want to edit it or view the document, send them a personal message saying, you know, and when I share that, that'll send out an email to the person and advise them Here's the link. Can you please have a look at these documents or with a personal message? And now the icon has changed and it shows us that it is now shared with somebody else. OneDrive generally tends to replace any sort of U drive that companies tend to set up for their users, and it helps manage that storage space within SharePoint. Everything is stored within the SQL database there, and it's a very quick and easy place for people to use and move to. Along with other information that comes for the users, also My Sites. There's a news feed which correlates all the information from across the site that you follow. So if there's a specific list or a specific library, another user's blog, then you can follow these and all this information will display on your news feed. There's this About Me section which pulls information directly from AD, so it'd be telephone number, position, etc. Plus a whole host of other information that the user can add in, like skill sets that you can then display out to other users. Personal blog gets set up. It's a tick box feature that comes when creating the My Sites. And section of apps where users can actually deploy their own libraries and lists and create their own sites for them to play with. And also, of course, OneNote. Microsoft have brought this out in the last couple of years, and it's making quite a big splash. And this becomes available now to everybody to use personally on their own My Site area. I'll give you guys a quick show of that. So you can see my news feed, all the information I'm following, everything that I've done. Also get everyone else's information. If I follow anybody else, if they've put any information down, it goes through. They've also added a lot of other socializing features that have been pulled from other social sites like Facebook and Twitter, where you can use an @ sign to mention somebody. There are tags that can be used and it allows larger corporations to just see exactly what the conversations are happening within SharePoint. The About Me section will fill out your profile, so it tells you all the information about a person. You can edit your profile. Being able to edit the profile, that can be also set by the administrators of the business, so you can say, well, they can edit only certain sections, or they can edit nothing at all, or they can edit everything. And it's also a byway sync, so it'll send information from here into and updated within AD if there is a linked field. So it'll update AD and AD will update SharePoint. The blog I mentioned earlier, you can see over here, it's quite a nice display. I think right out of the box you can see SharePoint 2013 has got a much nicer and cleaner look than the old 2010 and 2007 versions. Microsoft have done a lot to work to make it a lot more appealing for users. I think the uptake is a lot better when it looks cleaner and looks easier to use. The notebook's accessible through the Office Web App Store, the Office Web App Server. It allows me to edit everything within the browser. I can also open it within OneNote on my actual laptop and edit everything in there. And then the little app section I noticed earlier, so I can actually create new subsites or add little apps in to my own personal space to have a play with and store information. Lastly, there's also tasks. The task section will collate all tasks from within the business. So if there's a project site where you've been assigned tasks, workflow that assigns tasks, regardless of where it is within your site structure, the My Sites will pick it up and surface that information there for you. Jumping up to the organizing of SharePoint. Now, SharePoint has always been done using sites. Sites hold all the information. From the very basic level, you create a web app. That web app will have several site collections within it. And the site collection, as the name suggests, is just a collection of the sites. And the way the sites work is that you'll have a root site, and then you'll be able to create subsites underneath that to organize how the content can go in. This can either reflect your business. So for instance, we can have a subsite for departments and then a subsite below that for accounts, HR, technical team, maintenance teams, all the different teams that can go within your actual department site. And then next to that, we can have something for instance, our forms section where all documents or forms are held. This can be done and set however you wish. These sites come with quite a few different templates that all have different bits and pieces of the technology switched on as it is to focus specifically on those areas. And they come in about 3 different flavors: collaboration, enterprise, and publishing site templates. Under collaboration, that's focused on the users. So you'll have things like the team site, which is generally the most used site for creating SharePoint sites. And that gives users like a document library and a newsfeed to work with over there. You have a blog site, so that will be more for like a blog site that's created within a team or within a website that allows possibly thoughts from the CEO or a department head. It's a blog that's more openly available to the company and quickly accessible. Develop site is a specific site that's where developers actually are able to create and test apps. Project site is a more short-term sited template, and that takes a lot of from the team site, but it aims things at like tasks, anything that's project-centric, so working around the people over there. And then a community site, which used to be like forums, now it's called discussion. So it's an area where people can actually chat, post questions, sell items within the company, that type of thing. Under enterprise, these are generally tend to be more of your site collection templates. We have like document center where you have large scale document deployments, lots of metadata. E-discovery, I'll go into that a bit more detail a bit later, which works really well across the whole business for capturing information. Record center for archiving and storing. Business intelligence, which opens up templates for PowerPoint, Power View, reporting services, anything that you want to use analytics for. The enterprise search center, also got a nice little section based just on that. The My Site host, which hosts all the personal users' My Sites. A community portal. The community portal is quite nice. If you've got a very large scale deployment across a business with many, many thousands of users, and you have lots of little community sites placed all over the place, the community portal will actually capture and surface all that information into one area, allowing people to see exactly all the different conversations that are happening around the business. A basic search center, which is really used in the foundation version of SharePoint, and a Visio repository, which is specifically based around holding Visio documents. On the publishing side, the publishing portal opens up SharePoint to a lot more development, bespoke development. So if you want to change the way everything looks and feels and move away from the SharePoint book and things, you want to produce a bit more of a website feel to things, the publishing portal allows for that. An enterprise wiki is a large-scale wiki deployment, kind of like thinking about like along the lines of Wikipedia. It gives people the idea that they can actually capture information across the business that would usually be stored on Word documents or just in knowledge bases in people's heads. It's a really good place to capture all this information and keep it in one place. Product catalog for holding information. I think we also have an app catalog that goes with that, which holds all the different apps stores. And then the publishing site with workflow, which is based around people actually publishing articles, being able to make sure that these articles can move around and get displayed in certain areas. And it's very good for just also showing information as opposed to announcements or feeds. Let's have a look. I have a couple of examples for these for you. You can have a look at. Here's a basic project site. Now this was created out of the box. Immediately what you see is you've got a project summary over here. This tracks all the tasks that are added into the task list. pretty much all your sites out the box get this little feature saying get started with your site, and allows you quick ways to make and change any sort of small details to the site. Document library and a news feed. These news feeds pop up quite all over the place. A site feature which allows for what Microsoft determined as microblogging, but it's pretty much the same as like a status update on Facebook, where you can have quick fire information given to the users of the site, and people are able to reply to it and like that information. So you can see it'll post the information with my little picture over here. And then people are able to actually reply to that, like it. And I'm obviously able to copy the information over here, lock a conversation. I'm able to edit it and so forth. One thing you'll notice all over the place is our pictures are popping up over here. We've got link integrated with our SharePoint, which allows us to very quickly and easily actually just IM call people, pull that information across. SharePoint's Microsoft have been very good at actually integrating all their Office products within SharePoint, making them all available across the board. Here's a class site I put up for just to demonstrate what a team site could look like. What you can see over here, we've got a wiki, a documents library where we can add in information, picture library, useful links. These are all things that pretty much come standard with your team site. Now, you've actually probably seen a couple of them. I've been speaking about the lists and the libraries. Lists, this is generally information held within a data view or data sheet type of view. Think of like Excel, for instance. You'll have columns of headers and rows of the actual data. The common examples of these would be tasks, which are assigned to certain specific people. The tasks can integrate with Exchange, so these tasks can appear in Outlook and also obviously show in your own personal My Site. There's a calendar view, so this is just the columns of data that work with calendars, and it can be displayed in a calendar view and then also work with Outlook. I showed a links version to you guys earlier, and that's essentially just a couple of columns with the information and displayed to be able to be clickable. An announcement section which comes with an expiry date, so it allows you to, if it passes the expiry date, people won't see the announcement anymore. Contacts for holding any sort of external contacts. A survey, which is a list that's actually come through from 2007, SharePoint 2007, and kind of stuck with the whole point. And external lists, you're able to connect up an external list to another data source, for instance, a SQL query that runs against your database that can produce a list of information, and then that can be displayed within SharePoint and used that way. Libraries kind of flip the whole list functionality around. With lists, you actually are able to add attachments to any of the information. So they kind of both function in the same way, except libraries put the onus on the actual document that gets attached. And for that, we also have several different templates. Document library, which just holds several documents. A forms library, which is aimed specifically at info path forms. Wiki pages, which holds all different pages for wiki pages, and a picture library. I can quickly go show you guys that one again from the site over here. So the picture library, I was saying, displays all the information over here. The wiki library holds pages of information. The wikis are quite nice. It actually follows a lot of the same functionality as Wikipedia does. Very quick and easy to edit and update. So you can add in a third topic over here. And I'm using the double brackets to create a link. And it'll underline it, telling me it doesn't match up to any other pages in over here. So if I do click on it, it says, do you want to create this page? Yes, I'd like to create the page. I can add the information in over here. So now, quickly and easily creating a wiki of information. Documents, they come in over here. Just a quick note on document management. The versioning settings that come out of the box with SharePoint allows you to create major and minor versions. So major versions is every time I create a new document, I go from version 1 to version 2 to version 3. It stores these in the background, so you'll always see the latest version available and never have multiple copies going across the board. Versioning major and minor versions allow for 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. If you're in a library that's going to be updated quite a lot, you can actually control how many of these versions you want to keep, so you don't overrun the database or run out of storage. And then there's a bit of draft security, or draft item security. This is very useful if you want to update live company policies, for instance. So we have an HR library where we have HR documents that people come in and read all the time. HR want to update the information, but they don't want to remove or them to see the draft information. So as the HR person is updating it, the document goes from version 3 to 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. All the other users just see version 3 until the HR person actually publishes it to a major version of version 4, and then all the users will see the new version. So the document always remains in the same place. There's always the single version of the truth, and people see exactly what they're required to see. And this can be hooked up with approvals. So if a version needs to be approved by the manager, then they can do that, and we can hook that up with workflows so that people actually receive the email saying this item has been published, you need to approve it, here's the link to the item. And then also standard is the required checkout. This serves two functions. One, if you want to make sure that nobody else can edit the document while you're editing on it, then you set it to yes, person has to check it out, nobody else can edit the document, and only once you've checked it back in will it be available for other people to use. On the flip side, if you leave it as no, you can set up collaboration on a document. We've used this quite well extensively within Nexus, where if we're creating a tender, we have the one document and we have 4 or 5 people that need to work on this document. Setting that required checkout to no allows us all to actually work on the document simultaneously within SharePoint. Office 2010 and up works really, really well, where it tells you exactly who's working on the document and which sections they're working on, so it stops people from clashing. But it means that nobody's emailing around a document asking other people to update their bits and pieces. Everybody can work on the document at the same time, and there's no clashing. Calendar. Now you can see with this one over here, it looks exactly like a calendar, but in the background, it actually is just a list of information. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to get this to change. There we go. And you can see pretty much this is all the information that's required, and it'll display it in the calendar view. The ribbon features quite heavily within SharePoint 2. As you can see, there's a host of information and options that come with you. With the calendar one over here, for instance, we can connect it to Outlook, and that would synchronize with my Outlook. So I'll be able to see the calendar in my calendars within SharePoint, within Outlook, and update the list from Outlook. Here's a view of all the different apps as they come into SharePoint, and adding an app. It's as quick and easy as being able to click on that and then selecting from the host of apps that are available. So here's our contacts, announcements, links, promoted links, issue tracking, survey, the external list. So there's quite a few available that people can look at. Jumping back to our presentation, The Enterprise Search Center. Now, the Enterprise Search Center works in a really, really smart way. Before 2013, with 2010 and going back, pretty much the basic Search Center existed within SharePoint, where you type in what you're looking for, and then that will go and run around all of your SharePoint site and actually have a look around and try and find the information for you. The problems that people started experiencing were, well, we've got 10,000 documents. It's going to take a while to actually run and look through all the information over there. A paid-for product for 2010 was created called Fast Search. What Fast Search does is it indexes the sites. It indexes the whole SharePoint environment on a timed basis. So you can set it up for every 15 minutes, every half an hour, or continuously. And what it does is it goes through all the different documents and items, sites, everything that's within SharePoint, indexes all the information from that document. So it'll look at the document title, or the metadata that's attached to the document, the content within the document, and indexes this in its own database. So when you search for it, it searches against the index, and it's lightning fast with a lot more information in. Microsoft were very impressed with this. They actually bought the product, brought the team in with them, and they developed it further and created the Enterprise Search Center, which is now available with the standard and enterprise edition of SharePoint 2013. They've also added on extra abilities so that when you search, it starts indexing your search queries and then starts personalizing the results based on your intent and what you've searched for in the past. So it gives a bit more of a useful experience. I think they've learned a lot from Bing and from Google to try and make these things a lot more intuitive and easy for people to find documents and information. They've also brought in the ability to find people, connect with experts in the business, made it very easy to find all the information that you're looking for. I'll give you a quick example of that. So right off the bat, we've got the search box. Looks exactly like it does with Google. Just going to do this. And you can see immediately we've got results types down the side of here. The search was extremely fast and brought back the information really, really quickly. The refiners down the side of here can be created within the administration center, so you can create specific refiners for your business if you have specific types of documents that you want to make available to your users, and it quickly refines your results that you're looking for. And we can do it by the type of people, the information, and also when the document was created. They also use display templates. So if we're looking, for instance, across over here, we've got a preview of the document. Switch this back to all. You can see it actually looks inside the document, so you don't actually have to open the document to find out exactly what's in there. The preview is created by the Office Web App Server. And depending on the licensing features, you can actually set it up so that when you click on it, it actually opens up the document within your web browser. So you don't actually have to have Office on the workstation that you're using at the time. It allows you to edit that presentation using the web app. You can do that on a tablet or even on phones, depending on the size of the phone and how quickly and easily you want to do things. I mentioned the people search. This has replaced any sort of bespoke directory that people tend to create within the companies. Yeah, if I want to search by a person's name, I can search. It'll bring up information very quickly and easily. Provides suggestions. It searches for skill sets. So in our Ask Me About section that you can fill in your own My Site, it gives you these information over here. And you can look for conversations, so any sort of conversations there within the discussion sites or that are happening around the business or people's own personal news feeds. That information gets displayed. These vertices are essentially specific templates to display the information in a specific way. So for people, it's always going to use this people template. For conversations, it's always going to use the conversations template. The everything uses what's called the best fit template. So it looks at what the item is and displays it in that specific way. And you can create these within your company. So if you have specific type of forms that want to be displayed in a certain way, or commonly searched information, help guides, training information, that can be set up as a vertice along the top. And the search actually shows up everywhere. Now, there's a search web part that can be used within SharePoint to display the information from searches. So you can set a query and then display that information on a specific page. The analytics has also been replaced. With 2010 and before, there was a specific analytics engine within SharePoint. Now, SharePoint uses the Search Center's indexing features to actually create the analytics for your SharePoint site and check for which pages have the most views, how many unique visits you've had, the top visits for the site, specific day visits, and then it also tracks your most searched items and gives you analysis on what information people are looking for, what people can't find. So you're able to surface that information a bit better for them and put that in a more easily findable way, and allows you just to control that. Just to give you a quick example, I'm consciously running out of time over here. To say a homepage over here. Now over here we've got a homepage for our demo site, and we have these articles over here. These are basic articles that have been written as a page within SharePoint and published within our site. This web part itself over here is a search web part, and what it's doing is it's looking around for the 3 latest published articles that have headline metadata tags associated with them. So it doesn't matter where the article is published from or stored, because it's been indexed and because it contains the metadata, it gets displayed on the home page. Likewise, on the right over here, we have a little web part that displays all the people's information over here. The exact same web part that displays the information on the search part for the people, and we can set it for specific sites. So if I go to say sales, for instance, these are all our salespeople then over here being displayed down the side, and it's just for that team. So you can set lots of refiners and specific searches and then display the information without people actually having to give the information. And what this gives you is the ability to create like a home page which doesn't need to be managed. I think one of the biggest problems with internet homepages is that it's generally somebody's job to manage and update the content that goes onto it, but it's never their actual real full-time job. So the pages can get stale very, very quickly. Now SharePoint gives us the ability to surface this information regardless of where it is and where it's stored. It'll always be fresh and new information that comes up. Now I mentioned apps earlier. Lists and libraries fall into that category. Pretty much anything that goes into SharePoint now is called an app. I think they picked up on the terminology and running with that now. Within apps for SharePoint, we have the ability to build apps. So your developers can now create specific apps and deploy them to your app catalog, and then they can be deployed across the site wherever they are. I think previously, when it came to developing within SharePoint, everything had to be done on the page. You had to use specific skill sets to get this information and make it available. Now you're able to use SharePoint Designer or Visual Studio and the develop site template to actually create these apps and then store them. You also have a shop now for those apps. So whatever you build, you can actually put it out and make available to the public to buy. And you can browse through and find your own apps that might suit what you're looking for instead of having to build it yourself. And quite importantly, we can also control who within the company can buy and sell these apps. Let's have a quick look. You've got the SharePoint store over here. And the store is still pretty much within its infancy. It's only been around for about a year and a half or so. So the content's still starting to fill up, but there are a couple of good things coming in and out of here. Things like the Twitter feed seems to be quite popular these days. Companies want to display their own Twitter feed on the intranet, and there is a Twitter app that's been made available. So for social media, for instance. There's the Twitter app. And all these have been designed by people or companies. A lot of them are free. Some cost $2 a year, $25. I think we can change the amount. Yeah. And they go all the way up to about, I think I've seen apps up to about £300-400. The App Store is, like I said, can be controlled. So if you're an administrator, you can actually set it so that anybody can buy apps, but then the proliferation of apps becomes crazy across the site. You'll see a lot of things just being added in as people discover the site. You can control it so that the administration are the only people who can actually buy the apps and release it, or users can request an app and then the administrators have to actually do the purchase and deployment of the app. Or you can just remove it. A lot of features that we're showing you today can be removed to the point where nobody can actually use them at all, depending on the company policy. SharePoint is also being completely rebuilt from the ground up using HTML5 technology to make sure that it is available in all browsers, so it can be used in Chrome, Safari without any issues. There are a couple of small caveats that come with that. There's not, Silverlight used to be predominantly active on 2010 and 2007. Most of that functionality has been removed, except for a couple of small things like being able to drag and drop documents into libraries. That's only available in Internet Explorer, and other things like being able to open up a library from Windows Explorer is also only available if using Internet Explorer. But being HTML5 compliant means that now they can you can do a fully bespoke design to your site. There are themes that are quickly and easily changeable within the site, and it uses headings and text fonts, everything that's available to a normal web developer. And it's very quick and easy to actually create these designs too. There's a branding package that comes with it, so that you can actually create the package as you want to see fit within the tool that you use. So if you use off the top of my mind, I've forgotten some of the web development tools. But any sort of thing that you usually create your HTML pages out of, you can actually use that, create the design that you want, import it into SharePoint, and then SharePoint actually customizes. And with using SharePoint Designer, you actually add on the tags and incorporate that into SharePoint. Themes are quickly available too. I think just out of the box, if you don't like the new design as it is, you can actually change the look. So, I mean, the standard design is the blue and white out of the box. But SharePoint, Microsoft have provided us with a whole host of different ones which come with different feels and themes. So a background image, different fonts, different font types, colors. And these can also be created. So if you don't want to do a fully bespoke design, you can actually create your own design with colors to make it look more branded around the company. Things like adding in the company logo, changing the SharePoint sign at the top over there, very quick and easy.
We've just had a question in. Is the 365 version also fully bespoke?
Yes. Almost everything I've shown you today, actually everything I've shown you today is available in SharePoint Online and SharePoint On-Premise. A lot of the difference between online is that it's pretty much made available out of the box to you. You can fully bespoke and design make it look like a completely different site within SharePoint Online. So that's not an issue at all. Moving on to managing. SharePoint have created us a really easy way now. If you're still with 2007 or 2010, there's a simplified upgrade step where we actually run the service through several different steps that upgrades the content and moves the information across to the new servers without actually shutting down the SharePoint site. So people are able to carry on going on with the information. There's the option to keep the look. So if you've got a 2010 site and you don't want users to be impacted by the change and or that the sudden shock of having everything change over to the new blue and white from the old look, you can actually keep the old look and just change everything out in the background and then slowly upgrade as you need. And we can carry over everything from the workflows that were in 2010 and in 2007 straight through into 2013. They've done a lot of work on optimizing the performance for SharePoint. The tagline specifically from Microsoft is the SharePoint servers are designed to use minimal resources yet deliver a snappy user experience. To make this happen, the actual infrastructure has become a lot heavier with SharePoint on-premise. Goes without saying with SharePoint Online, it's fine that everything's based in the cloud and you don't have to really worry about the actual performance side. But with on-premise, you have to, at the very minimum, recommended setup would be a 2-server deployment, a dedicated SQL box, and a dedicated web front-end server. And then depending on other features, for instance, the Office web app server would have to also require its own server, and you can make things set up so it's set up for high availability with multiple web front-end servers and app servers in the back. Managing risk. The administration in the background has been set up really, really well now to enable people to enable administrators to actually manage the system. They've also introduced something called the eDiscovery Center. The eDiscovery Center allows you and uses the search functionality to search for any specific or information across the whole business. A good example of this is if a company is being served legal papers by a lawyer saying we need all information about this specific product and anybody who's been involved in this product, including email conversations, IM conversations, documents, anything within the business that relates to the specific product. Usually a company would have to bring in an outside specialist to actually go through all the systems and collate all this information. Then they have to actually go through that information and find that information and produce it in such a way that it actually can be handed over to the lawyers. The eDiscovery Center does everything that that specialist would actually do. Using the search tags, you can search for all the specific documents across all sites. You can add in specific users and search their exchange boxes. If you use link and conversations, that information gets archived into Exchange and will also be pulled in. And what you can do is then you can actually put in an in-place hold. And this information is held in place by this search query. And then if the documents get changed, then it'll make a new version of that and keep the old version with itself and the new version. So you can actually see how the information evolves from there. And then you can hold and preserve that information and actually produce it for the lawyers in that way. And it's a very, very good and useful tool for finding information from within your systems where there are a lot of other people involved or there's specific products or specific information involved, and it collates all that and puts it in place.
We've had another question from Hugh. Are documents and other files stored on a file server or in the SQL database?
If it's stored in a SharePoint document library, it'll be stored on the SQL database. So it all gets held within the SQL backend data store. But another nice feature is if you've got very large file shares and you're implementing SharePoint and you don't really want to bring those file shares across just yet, but you want to make them available to users through SharePoint, you can actually point the search center at those file shares and it'll index those files too. So you can get all the title information from them, and the content that's within the documents will be indexed by the search. but you won't get any of the nice snappy features from the Office Web App Server being able to preview it. But it does mean that you don't have to move everything across to SharePoint, or you can keep certain sections away from SharePoint, but still have it accessible through SharePoint with the search. The actual Discovery Center was the last bit of the workflow, or the web front end that I wanted to speak to you guys about, so I'm quite happy to take on questions now.
Just another question actually just popped in.
Yeah.
For the eDiscovery Center to search and retrieve emails, do you need to have Exchange Online auditing archiving option?
Yes. I think you have to set it up so that Exchange Online does archive it. I'm not too sure about the auditing, because it does use the search technology to go through all the information that's still available. But it definitely needs to hold on to the information, as it can't search through anything that it can't find. But it generally uses a administrator level permission, so it'll have access to everything that needs to go through them, and it'll just crawl through it and index it and store a copy of it, or make a note towards where it is, and then create copies as those are changed.
Does anybody have any further questions that they'd like to ask? We'll be sticking around for the next 10 minutes or so to answer them. So please do fire away with anything you'd like to ask.
How is it licensed? I think that one for you.
Yes, so it's a with on-premise, it's a per server with CAL licensing model, but obviously with Office 365 you are purchasing, or even SharePoint Online, you are purchasing it as a per user model. So you just essentially purchase for the number of users in which you'd like to access it.
Ollie's asked if OneDrive can share files with non-corporate users. You can if you're exposed externally. With SharePoint Online, you can. It's very quick and easy. You actually just type in that share button, you type in the external user's email address, and they'll be sent the link. The only requirement is that they have a live account, or some sort of their own Office 365 account, or a Microsoft Hotmail or Live account, so that they can be they need to sign in as they go through and be verified by Microsoft. The other option to that is to be able to set up anonymous access, but I think at the MySite level that's generally restricted. But you can set up like an extranet with anonymous access and share from that point too. The SharePoint configuration. So Chris has asked, what is your opinion of using the SharePoint configuration wizard versus setting up everything manually? I set up everything manually. Every single deployment that we've done for every single business has been completely different. It tends to follow along the similar lines. For instance, some people want an intranet, or other people want a document repository. You want to have document management in, but setting it up manually means that we can do each specific service for that SharePoint environment and make sure that that's set up correctly. The configuration wizard requires you to set everything up for you, but then you still have to go in and manually make changes to all the bits and pieces, and it feels like overkill. We try and set everything up that's required for that deployment. It brings on another note about actual big bang deployments. Generally, these tend to fail. SharePoint is such a large product, and it covers such a large ground that if corporations try to, or companies try to bring out SharePoint in all its glory for everything that it can do, users feel overwhelmed. So what we tend to do is we work with the specific requirements for SharePoint for that client, and we release those objectives and make them just deploy the specific services manually, as it would be. And I think after once you've done a few of them initially, they're actually fairly simple and straightforward. And Stevens, can it integrate with Moodle? Short answer is I don't actually know.
It can.
It can?
It can. Yeah. Microsoft have provided integration via their Open Technologies team to support Moodle integration with SharePoint. So that is possible.
All right. Chris has mentioned that he's having Chris Cundy, I think he has mentioned, they set up everything manually, but having a big problem with getting search to work. The correlation ID errors, there's a tool called a ULS viewer, which might help you a little over there, because that generally points you in the direction of what the error is throwing up. But there's quite a bit that sometimes can go wrong in the back end without actually having looking at it further. I wouldn't be able to give you further advice than that. Other than that, we're more than happy to actually, if you want to give us a shout, we can definitely help you out and troubleshoot with you. But take a look at that at the ULS viewer and see if that helps you out. It just looks at the ULS logs and then it gives you a bit more information using the correlation ID error.
Please feel free to keep the questions coming. More than happy to help and here to do so. So if you do have any further questions, please do let us know.
I suppose, well, one thing I can say is one thing I didn't mention in my presentation was that SharePoint 2013 also comes with a new workflow server. The 2010 workflow engine is bundled with every single SharePoint deployment now. So if you create a new SharePoint 2013 environment, the 2010 workflow is available out the box for you to use immediately. And there's a setting just to switch on the old 2007 and 2010 workflows. So those will quickly become available. But there's a new workflow manager that comes with from Microsoft that can be bolted on to SharePoint 2013 that allows for a bit more bespoke, a bit more smart workflows. Things like being able to use loops, machine states, and also firing off other workflows from within the workflow. But that needs to be on-premise, needs to be deployed separately. With SharePoint Online, the 2013 workflow engine is available out of the box.
Okay, so we'll mute ourselves now, but please feel. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Someone's typing a message there.
No problem, Colette. Please feel free to touch base with us if you require anything, any assistance with this. Chris has asked another question there.
One thing we noticed is that Microsoft removed the ability to send emails when a task is assigned. We found a PowerShell script to get this working per task list, however, not suitable enough for large business if lists have the same name and different site collections. Microsoft due to bring this feature back. I don't know. I don't know why they deprecated that feature. It was quite useful in the past. What we've done with the tasks now, I think one of the big things is that the tasks are aggregated into your news feed. So you're able to access all the tasks that are assigned to you there, and you can set up your own notifications from that point. But I kind of agree with you in that they removed a useful functionality from there. What we do is either, like you say, you use the PowerShell script to get that working, or we tend to use, when tasks need to be sent out, we tend to use the workflows for that. Ollie, Chris is, yeah, I think Ollie was answering for Chris there, yeah.
I presume you can still do this with 2013 in relation to what part of the conversation was that? Sorry.
I think he was answering Chris
okay.
Kennedy. Yeah, it's quite strange. I think with going back to Chris's question over here, a lot of work has been done by Microsoft to move towards the My Sites and the social features, and they're really trying to get people. And I think it's I'd say the younger generation, even our mid-30s and 40s, now quite happily used to using Facebook. Everybody, I think, is quite comfortable with Facebook and Twitter now, and having these type of features available within the business seemed like a great idea for Microsoft. So they've pushed in this direction and making people go to their own sites and getting their own information from that area. I suppose only time will tell if it's actually very successful. I mean, we find it quite useful. I use my personal blog quite often, along with one of our other directors, for any sort of interesting information, like PowerShell scripts that we found for doing specific small things. We just blog about it within the business, so that anybody else within the SharePoint site can actually find and use that information. Yeah, Yammer is the other one, and I think that's coming in leaps and bounds. We tried out Yammer when it first got released with SharePoint Online, and it was kind of a side-by-side integration at the time, and we didn't quite like the way it took over all the features, but didn't quite replace them at all. And we haven't really touched on it since then, so I think it's something that we need to take another look at it again. But Yammer is great. I mean, we use it also to communicate externally with Microsoft for the business critical partner information that we get from them, and all the events that they and exams they give out to us from them. But that's one of the things. I think it just takes time to bed those features in to take over something as big as that.
Okay, do we for the final few on the call? Are there any further questions? If not, or if you do think of anything following the webinar, please do feel free to get in contact with us, and we'd be happy to assist from that point. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you joining today, and have a great day.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
Thank you, Carolina. So I think at this point we'll wrap it up. But thank you again for joining us today.